But taking back your power and taking the steps to protect yourself and your family brings back your voice and your life. And just following up with every violation takes your personal power back and gives yourself back to you so you can have peace again.
Welcome to another episode of Relentlessly Resilient, where people share their real-life experiences and the tools they've developed to move forward and live their best lives. Presented by Minky Couture. I'm Jenny Taylor.
And I'm Michelle Scharf. Minky Couture is designed to bring luxury and comfort for years to come. Your blanket is created with the highest quality Minky fabric, and each blanket is created using the highest quality sewing machines, and they stand behind their work. I had a blanket that actually just untucked a little bit, took it back in, and they replaced it right away.
Really?
Yes, they are so good.
I had no idea.
Yes, so they stand behind the quality of their work, and I think I just had a rare little issue with this one blanket.
I don't know that I've ever had that happen to any of the Minkies that me or my kids have, so that's why I was surprised to hear that. But that's great that they'll stand by the quality of work and get right to it if there is a problem.
Yep, absolutely. I love Minky. They are amazing. And there's a blanket for everyone, whether it's an infant blanket. They have these little like miniature kind of perfect for the stroller blankets, all the way up to adult.
And even for all seasons too. They have some that are lighter, just different fabrics where maybe you have kind of the comfort of the little bit of a weight of something on you without that heat on you at night. So really, so many different sizes,
and great
options,
for
fabrics, travel. I have to take one on the plane.
I do too.
And sometimes I'm blistering hot, and sometimes I'm freezing. But I just don't know. So it comes with me. Even if it doesn't fit in my bag, I will just carry it. I will make sure it is with me.
Yep, I'm the same way. Well, like I said, I'm Michelle Scharf, and today we have with us a fun little guest that came by the way of the Salt Lake County Chamber of all things, but unrelated at all to it.
Right?
Isn't that funny? Marybeth, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you both for having me on. I'm a Reiki Master. I'm an author. I'm a businesswoman. I have done a lot of different seminars and speaking around the country and one time internationally, and I just love meeting people. And you can learn something from every soul that you meet.
Absolutely. I know, I feel like we're kindred spirits. We hit it off. I love that we finally got to connect, and just there's so many little synchronicities that you brought up that I just thought was really cool.
Yeah,
I'm excited to get to know you even better today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So tell us more about your story.
Okay, so where I want to go today is talking about domestic abuse can be positive, and I know that sounds absolutely insane, but it can be a positive because every day we wake up, we can choose to have a different life. We can step back into our personal power. And what I mean by that is making a plan, making choices for a healthy lifestyle. You can't change that other person, but you can change what you're doing in your life. And I always say that it shows such strength as a human being to reach out for the resources that are available. That's the best and strongest thing you can do for yourself, for your children, and for your family. And there's always hope for a better tomorrow. You just need to reach out and choose it and take some action steps and prepare.
Yeah.
And I just want to get into like my wake-up call. Everyone has a wake-up call in their life, and my wake-up call was when I had a near-death experience. I had gone in for surgery, and I was hemorrhaging, and they didn't know. And the nurse came in to get me up out of the bed and realized that I was hemorrhaging, and I went in for my second surgery, and I was actually so weak, I couldn't even raise my arms. And they were very worried, and they did something that they packed me until the doctor could get there to save me and was putting pressure on my body. And they called my sister and my husband, and my sister just was in the hallway, and she's like, "You can't die. You have 4 children. You can't die." That's how worried they were about me. And I went down, and when the doctor got there and the nurse and the doctor were speaking, and I wasn't in my body anymore. I was up above looking down at myself. And I thought, well, that's strange. I'm above myself. How can that possibly be? and I felt blissful. I felt unconditional love, and I felt wonderful, just so peaceful. I had not felt peaceful in so very long. And a brilliant white light, and like I said, that unconditional love washed over me. And my dad appeared before me, and he had died when I was 14 years old. And I was so excited to see him. And he scolded me. He's like, you know better than to live your life this way. And I did know better. And he's like, what are you doing with your life? So he wanted me to focus on my life, and I just wanted to talk to him. But the interesting thing is, we were talking soul to soul telepathically. I wasn't in my body. I had a thought, and he would respond to it back and forth. And I just told him how peaceful I felt and how beautiful. It's just the most brilliant white light. I can't even describe it. It's euphoric is the best word. And he told me I had to go back. And before I knew it, I was thumped into my body. And the next day I told the doctor when he came in and said, you know, we were worried that we lost you. And I said, well, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm going to share an experience that I had. And then I told him a couple things that I wouldn't have known because I was in shock. And he's like, you had a near-death experience. I've heard this 2 other times in my 30 years of practice. And what it did for me is I'm an empowered soul. I can do anything I set my mind to. And I had a different way of interacting with people that when my ex-husband would belittle me or say things to me, I would call him out on it. And I told him, you're going to go get counseling. You're going to get medication if you need it. Things are going to change. So to make a really, really long story shorter, he went on several different medications. He was in and out of the hospital 5 or 6 times, and he could never stay to it or stick to it. So I made a decision to get a divorce, and that's the most dangerous time to leave an abuser, is when you're going to leave, they're losing power over you in your life and that control. So don't take this lightly, take this very seriously. And when you do plan on leaving, make a plan, have a backpack, stay somewhere, not at a friend's house, get an Airbnb or a hotel in another town. Don't tell anyone. Take precautions before you leave. Keep it secret, make a plan, reach out to domestic abuse support groups. There's so many resources that are available to you, and take advantage of them. So when I decided to leave, I also did a personal protection order, and they have them in every single state. You can go to the courthouse and file a personal protection order and report the violence that's already taken place in your home, be it the abuser pushing you or screaming at you or anything that you feel threatened by. You can report, file this personal protection order even before you leave. And then when you leave, he can be served or she can be served with the paperwork. And what this does, it will not stop your abuser. But what it does is every time they break that order and call you or drive by your house or stalk you or beat you up or, God forbid, sexually assault you, you can go to court. Each and every time you call the police, you go to court and you report it. In my situation, we went to court several times and they kept threatening with jail and didn't do anything. Well, the final time, he had a loaded shotgun. He was drunk. And he was going to come over and shoot myself and the children. We were out of town for a wedding reception. And I hadn't told anybody where I was going, which saved my life because he could have found out. When we returned that evening at around 11, my ex-sister-in-law was in front of the house. And she's like, you can't go in the house. He's looking for you and the kids, and he's got a loaded gun, and the police couldn't find him. So I actually went with my ex-sister-in-law to her friend's house because he wouldn't know to find us there. And the police kept calling my cell phone, wanting to know where I was and that they hadn't found him. Well, I'm a very intuitive person. And a couple hours later, I said, it just came to me where he is. So I took my ex-sister-in-law's friend's car. We drove over to a pole barn in a country field and saw his vehicle, parked down a country lane and called 911. Those were terrifying moments. And we watched the police take him down, handcuff him, and take a loaded shotgun out of the vehicle. So that was the day that I took back my life. So that was the day that I took back my life. And he actually had the audacity, even from jail, to call me. I had to call the jail and have the call blocked. But taking back your power and taking the steps to protect yourself and your family brings back your voice and your life. And just following up with every violation takes your personal power back and gives yourself back to you so you can have peace again.
I love that.
Wow.
And I know that was a lot.
That was a lot. And I let you just stay in the story. I mean, it was great. You did a great job, and it was very compelling. But
Thank you.
I love that you ended that by saying that to find your voice. Because so often when somebody has been a victim of domestic violence, they don't feel seen, heard, or valuable in any way. And so in order to be able to find your voice and be able to advocate for yourself is such an empowering thing.
I think I was very fortunate. I grew up with parents that said I could do anything I set my mind to. They were very supportive. And we were very charity-based, get involved and help people. My dad always said, if you feel something about a situation, get involved and do something, or your words mean nothing. Right. Get involved, be active. Yeah. But you can actually take helping to an extreme, which is what I did. I felt sorry for my ex-husband when I met him, and I was playing social worker. Well, the only person you can change is yourself.
Right.
If there are red flags when you are dating, that things that don't feel right, that you know in your heart aren't right, you need to walk away. They can get help through social services or other organizations. But what I want you listening to know, there is no shame. You didn't ask for this. Domestic abuse crosses all social and economic boundaries. It is not just one class, it is every class. And it is so brave to make a plan, reach out for help, and make that positive foot forward in your life to live as God would want you to live and to be cherished and respected and heard.
I love that.
I love that too.
Thank you.
When you had that experience in the hospital and with your father, and that helped you, like your turning point, what was the process like for you to get that protective order filed, for you to reach out to those resources, to make that plan? I know looking back, you can kind of cite it, hey, I did these things and I left. But many of us know people in relationships where maybe they've had that come to Jesus kind of moment. They know they need to leave and they still just don't know where to start. So I'd love to hear a little more about either what you experienced in that outreach or what others might need to know, how to hang on to that courage, how to hang on to that determination to get that help and get out when, as you mentioned, that's the most dangerous time. They know you're leaving. They know where your friends are. They know who your sister is. They know, and there can be so much of that insecurity. I'd love to hear a little more about that bridge, going from having the moment of knowing I am not going to let myself be treated like this to those initial steps where it can't be easy.
So initially when I came back home, I would have a journal which I dated. Say it was June 15th, and I would put the date June 15th, 2024, whatever the date was. And if he screamed at me, if he slapped me, I would put incident. On this day, this happened to me. And if someone else in the community or a neighbor saw it, I would journal their name in so that it could be corroborated. I started an abuse timeline.
Wow.
And each and every time, if he said, F you, you stupid, da-da-da-da, in a grocery store because I brought the wrong brand of something, and he would do that. My kid's Sunday school teacher actually heard him saying that in the parking lot. And so I journaled that because that could be accounted for.
Right.
Another person witnessed.
There was an amount of time between when you decided to leave and when you left.
I gave him an opportunity to get on medication and to get counseling, and he was actually hospitalized several times. He had severe bipolar, and he was addicted to alcohol. So he would have high highs and low lows, and it was a cycle. And after so many opportunities over a few, probably 18 to 24 months, you're just done. Mm-hmm. And I felt good in my soul that I gave the opportunity, because you don't want to see your kid's father. And I'm sure a lot of people are in this situation. But there comes a day when you realize it's not going to change. This life is not okay for me. So journaling, keeping that abuse timeline, having other people corroborate or talk to the abuser that, hey, I saw that. And then finally, when I filed the PPO, I had saved voice messages that were very, very abusive. And the last one, he's like, if I can't have you, no one can. But it was the way he said it. That was a valid threat. Mm-hmm. And that did it.
Absolutely.
That did it. I played it, and it was it almost sounded evil the way he said it.
Yeah.
And they filled out the paperwork. We did the PPO, and then they asked me when they wanted it served. And so I served him with divorce papers and the PPO at the same time, which of course sent him reeling. And the first thing he did was drive over to my house, breaking the personal protection order.
And that's where you had the plan in place to where you knew you
get out of there.
You knew you needed to not be
I actually stayed at a
findable.
hotel in another city.
Okay.
And the kids went swimming, and I told no one where we were. No one. And the front desk, when I checked in, I just said, do not give out my information. It could be life-threatening.
A matter of life and death.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they didn't.
So that's so, I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes and just thinking how difficult that is to say you need to leave and you need help, and yet you can't tell anyone because in telling anyone you might be
jeopardizing. And it is challenging
your children
because,
and yourself.
If you're in a marital situation and they have access to every single credit card, I mean, when you check into a hotel today, it's not enough to give them cash. They want a credit
traceable.
card. So it's all traceable,
right?
So it is challenging, like for somebody to be able to, which is why an Airbnb is a great option.
That or get a prepaid Visa card and put $300 on it. They're not going to trace that.
Right.
So there's plenty of things that you can do it in a discreet way.
And these are all great things for us to talk about because, these, when you're in this situation, it is so hard sometimes to see a way out or to be creative, to think about, I could go down to Walmart or Target or even Smith's and get a prepaid Visa card and be able to do this.
Or a burner phone so that you can call the domestic abuse line, or if you're in a support group,
that's not on
have
your
a
family
burner
plan.
phone that you can talk to these support groups on, that your spouse isn't looking through all your text, all your phones. If you have this phone
just
that you can
controlling
keep at a friend's
every
house,
element.
they look at every single element.
It's just control.
It is control.
I'd love, let's talk for a minute, because you bring up a good point, Michelle. If you're the one struggling, you might not be the one listening to this podcast, first of all. You might not be the one with the wherewithal. I'm very impressed that you could keep that journal and make that plan, and that shows that conviction of that near-death experience was very powerful.
Thank you.
What if I'm the friend? What if I have a friend who's in the abusive relationship? Any advice you'd give me? What can I watch for? How can I help? When again, we all know I can't change someone else.
Right.
I can't decide for her. I can't necessarily stop him or whatever the roles might be. But are there things you would give someone who might be listening today that says, oh my goodness, this sounds like my girlfriend or my sister or the neighbor down the street? What do we watch for to collectively try to keep each other safe? And maybe what can we do to help them get that courage? I think the biggest thing,
I'm going to interject here, is because I work with the Children's Justice Center, and it's about abuse. And the biggest thing we talk about is you have to be willing to have the hard conversations. So going to that friend and saying, hey, I'm concerned about your relationship.
And just being direct.
Being direct. I'm concerned about your relationship. If you ever need to talk to somebody about it, or if you feel that you're not safe, I want you to know that I will be a safe person for you.
And not to interrupt, but the simple act of, say you are the best friend, of Googling therapist, because sometimes the person is so under the abuser's thumb, they can't use the computer. But your best friend can say, hey, I found 3 therapists. I'll make the appointment for you. I'll use my phone so he doesn't know or she doesn't know.
I'll drive you there.
I'll drive you there. There are so many things that friends can do, because then the abuser doesn't see, because you've got another person that's helping you.
And there's so much control where, like you said, the person that's being abused is likely brainwashed to a degree or manipulated and terrified, or maybe they don't think it's that bad, or he'll never do it again. I mean, we've all heard those things before.
And
it's terrifying.
I grew up in a very positive environment. We were Catholic. We were very involved. My parents encouraged us. We could do anything we wanted. We went to private school. This crosses all barriers.
Right. Like you said, it's not stuck to one race, one socio-demographic.
But I think because I had that self-confidence, that really did help the situation.
Well, and you're lucky you still had it at the point that you did, right?
He had wore it down.
Right. I'm very impressed by that.
He had really wore it down, but it wasn't gone. There was still a little sprinkle and sparkle of me in there.
Right. And probably that connection, that near-death experience was probably the reignition of that.
It was a wake-up. It's like, of course I knew better. What the heck was I doing with my God-given life? What a waste. And what am I showing my children?
Right.
It just wasn't right. And I knew it wasn't right. And it was time to take action steps, one step at a time. It can be overwhelming, but if you do one positive thing for yourself each and every day, that can help.
Curious. So you made this happen. What about your children?
They went to therapy too.
Yeah. But is he involved in their life?
There's only one child that will even talk. And it's ironically the child that he was most abusive to verbally. From a psychological standpoint, you always want approval from your father as a little girl. So it's very tragic.
She's still seeking that.
She's still seeking it. She will never get it.
Yeah. No, that's tough, and you see that.
And I said it wasn't fair, the father that you had, but I could only be your mother.
How old are the kids now? What's the age range?
They're in their 20s and then early 30s.
20s to 30s, okay.
Yeah.
So young adults starting their own lives, trying to get on their own feet.
And I was only 18 years old.
Oh, my
when
word.
I met so he was older.
Looking back, you see the red flags now.
Oh,
are there any of those you want to discuss in a general term that could be helpful?
So the red flags were when we met, he wanted to, go study like right away. You're the best thing that's happened to me.
Oh, the love bomber.
Oh, love bomber. When I'm with you, life is amazing and I can't live without you. And he wanted to move really, really fast.
And you're so young.
And then I am Catholic. I ended up getting pregnant with twins, and the guilt
of word.
Not being married. And we went to church all the time. We went to confession. I mean, we were devout Catholic. Yeah. My parents were 45 when they had me, so it was like old school Catholic big families. So it's like, there is no option. No, I didn't have to get married. There were so many other choices that I could have made for myself.
But in that moment, that's the only option that you saw.
Exactly. That was the only option that I saw.
Yeah, and the red flags can be so varied anyway, right?
Too fast, too soon is a huge red flag. Not getting you 1 dozen roses, but getting you 2 dozen roses. Over the top behavior, which you feel so special. But in about 8 to 10 months, you can be the worst thing that ever happened to them in the blink of an eye when a mood changes.
Did you have any of your family members, your friends that saw some of those red flags? Did they see them more clearly than you did?
They saw some things, but he was a very intelligent, charismatic business
So even
person.
for those around you.
He could charm you. He could come in a room and charm you. So even when these things started to happen, like just one example, and she didn't know, but this old church lady, I was very involved with the church and volunteered. So everybody knew me. I was on the education commission. I'm just the type of person I get very involved.
Sure.
And she's just came up to me in church and she said, "How could you do this to your family? How could you do this?" And she shamed me in church. And I'm not going to validate that with the hell that my children
That she
and
has no
myself,
idea about.
He would call 100 times a day sometimes on the landline and my cell. One time begging me, take me back. The next time, you're an effing you know what. And it was just ludicrous chaos. He would park in front of the house, scare the kids, would have to call the police. I was working. I mean, it was, looking back, I don't know how we literally survived emotionally through that.
It's such a hard thing to bear. And so you're in it. It's high stress.
You're on alert for your
Yes.
life constantly.
Yeah. So you're in this heightened state constantly, which is probably why, I feel like sometimes in the domestic violence, women kind of they get it twice. They're getting it from the abuser and then they're getting it from society.
Because if
They're
you
getting
don't
that
share,
judgment.
if you don't share your dirty laundry, they're gonna look like, oh, you ruined your family. Well, they don't know, and anyone listening, you don't have to share your personal business with people. It's none of their business.
You don't owe them that explanation.
You owe yourself and your children a loving, peaceful, respectful environment, period.
Yeah. And then there's that other piece where like society is like, well, she should just leave. But it's not always that easy because like what you're just now explaining is it is high stakes. You're at a heightened state of alert. Sometimes you can't think clearly through all these things. I think it's why it's such a good reason that we are doing this podcast today.
Right.
Because I hear your message loud and clear. There is a positive way out of this, and it does not have to be the end for you.
No, it doesn't.
There's more for any woman out there listening to us today. There is more for you. You don't have to put up with this, but you need to be smart, right? You need to make a plan. You need to make a plan. You need to gather your support. You have to do it with connection. So any friend that you can trust, any family member that you can trust.
And it doesn't even have to be friends or family. There are so many domestic abuse organizations that are complete strangers that will be more than happy to help you make a plan to leave, to get that backpack somewhere at a friend's house that you can go grab it with your kids. And you've got to be prepared to walk out with the clothes on your back. But that's okay.
Because you're taking your life back.
You are taking your life back.
Yeah. I think it's unfortunate, but you really do have to be willing to sometimes walk away. Because like you said, class is no respecter of this. So some women may be living very well lives. They're getting to go to the gym. They're getting their Botox. They're getting their hair done. They're getting their...
On the surface, it looks like they have everything.
Right. And people think she's got it all when inside she's actually dying.
Exactly.
And the truth of the matter is it's not a good environment for her or her children. And so, it's an important dialogue to have.
So many, at least in experiences I've encountered with people where maybe there isn't a lot of money, but any money that there is only the abusers.
Right.
So
they
there's
control
that risk
the money.
As I'm leaving, I'm leaving everything, but I'm also leaving every bank account or every income. Maybe it's a mom that doesn't have her own employment.
Even likely the woman that looks like she has everything and she's living in a very nice house and all of those things, often she doesn't have access to the money.
It's control.
It's provided for her, and he wants those things for her.
Well, that's actually financial abuse.
Part of
It's called financial abuse.
Yeah, and he wants
part of the manipulation game.
Right.
So the outside picture looks like everything's rosy and he's a great husband, but he's controlling every cent of the money. You can't even get a bar of soap.
Right.
Without asking permission.
Right. And he's controlling the plastic surgeries and the whatever.
You're supposed to be perfect.
You're supposed to be perfect.
And this or that, or criticizing if you gain 5 pounds. But one really important fact that I don't think I mentioned, if you get slapped and it bruises you, or if they grab your arm and it bruises you, go to the doctor, take a picture, have it on file.
Document it.
It is part of your domestic abuse timeline, just like your notes, just like the PPO. Go to the doctors. If you get sexually assaulted and you say no and they still do it, even if you're married, go to the hospital. Document it that you said no. If you were held down, go to the doctors, go to the hospital. Keep telling and documenting, and eventually it will catch up with them, and they'll either get jail time or you'll at the very least, be granted the personal protection order. And I just want to mention the National Domestic Abuse Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. And the National Sexual Violence is 1-877-739-3895. And I do a podcast called The Healing Soul. And my theme is empowering wellness and oneness. Know that you always have hope and you are never alone.
Oh my goodness, that's powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to say for our listeners in Utah, every state is different. So you will need to do a little bit of research as far as, is it a PPO? Is it a stalking injunction? Is it a no contact?
Right. Mine was in Michigan.
Right. You were from Michigan when this was happening. In Utah, we have several different things. We have restraining orders. We have, I believe there is a protective order. We have a no stalking order, which I have unfortunately had to use. We have no contact orders. So there's just a wide variety of different things, and each of them have a standard to uphold in order to be granted.
Sure.
So, and it is a process, and you do have to document, because the courts do want to see that. So,
and this is where I'll go back to what you said at the very beginning as we began. I wrote it down. The idea that there's strength to be found in reaching out to the resources available.
Yeah.
And that resource, probably you're going to need some help to make these big
Most
changes.
definitely. You need a lot of help.
And whether it's a friend, it's a sister, but like you said, it's not even just family and friends. It's the shelters, it's the domestic violence coalitions, it's the people who are experts that know how to help you and give you the strength maybe the abuser has taken from you in the moment. And just such an important, really imperative conversation to everyone listening that maybe you're fortunate enough to not be in a situation like this, but odds are you know someone who is or has been.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
where we've got to not turn a blind eye to what we think we saw. We can't be judgmental to what, the surface of what we see. We've got to be willing to have those hard conversations, like Michelle said, and be direct and create that, hopefully, atmosphere where we can be that person of trust and maybe be that strength for the other person for the time that it's been taken from them and they don't have it in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
I'm glad for what did you call them? Synchronicities?
Yeah.
Yes,
that brought us together, coincidences, whatever you want to call it, to where here we are and so many important things aligning today. So thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And to all of our listeners, thank you for listening. Thank you to Kellyanne Halverson behind the board, our producer. To our listeners, we hope you'll find us on your favorite podcast platform. Give us a like and a rating and a review. It helps us get the show out to other people to where hopefully we can have that positive impact and let people build those skills and those strengths and also walk back into the empowerment of their lives. We also hope that you'll share your stories with us. It's been great recently. We've had some listeners who've contacted us and they've become guests on the show. And so if you're willing to share something you've learned through experiences you've had, find us on social media. You can go to Facebook or Instagram and look for Relentlessly Resilient and Relentlessly Resilient Podcast. Michelle has a little calendar button where you can set an appointment with her for a phone call where you can talk about what you might be able to share with Michelle and me and also with all of our listeners.
And remember, whatever you do today, remember to be kind. You have no idea the struggles others are dealing with in their lives. Have a great day.